Well, I'm enjoying a cup of tea because I like it, and because it's New Year's Day today. So Happy New Year, January the 1st, 2017, and I've got to say I'll be very happy to get rid of 2016. But this video is not about that, it's about this little guy here, 351 engine. This is the final video on the assembly of this engine, of course. The next one, we'll mount it on that stand and run the camshaft in, see how it goes. So this video is all about that. So it won't be up today. It's like it's 8:30 at night now. By the time I sort of crunch it up and edit bits and pieces and that sort of thing, I won't have it uploaded until tomorrow, the 2nd. So hope you enjoy. Right, so I've got these heads that I want to put back on the car. I've just come back from the engine builder with these. He wanted one of the heads with a pair of rocker arms, obviously, and the cam card, and he's written some instructions here now. Here are the new valve springs and retainers. They've got a damper in them. I asked him if he thought I should put the damper back, and he said of course, yeah. Some people choose to take them out, of course they're the retainers. And he's also included a set of shims just for the inlet side only. Now he's checked all the lift obviously and check against binding and all this sort of stuff, and there's sort of 110, yeah, about 110, between 100 and 110 depending on which one, clearance, is sort of maximum lift, if you know what I mean. So this XC, I'm tipping, should be a nicer car to drive. It should be actually a nicer car than the XW. It's going to have a cloth interior, which is sort of more comfortable. But not only that, the engine will be a tiny bit more powerful, more comfortable car to drive. And also being a manual, I'm expecting good things out of it. And I also think the paint will look better too. I mean, I'm not complaining about the XW's paint. The paint's alright, but there were a few repairs I wasn't happy with where the XW was concerned, and certainly the boot, for example, I want to redo. So, you know, it doesn't matter. But I'm expecting the XC to be really, really nice. In fact, of all the cars I've got, aside from that Commodore, which is new, or newish, I reckon the XC will be the nicest one. Because they're quite sure-footed on the road, they're quite nice to drive, and this one will be sort of all new. So I'm expecting great things. Great things out of it. That's an intake one, I need a shim. But in saying that, it's very easy to sort of speak too soon. And quite often things don't turn out as you expect. With cars, you sort of restore them and you get them looking fairly good, but because there's so many different facets of it, a lot of things can go wrong. Now, I've taken a lot of care with this engine to make sure everything is spot on, but you know, you never know. You can't be too cocky. So I'm going to put these coals in my hands. Filthy now. Since I lubricated that tool. There we go. But I'm happy with this. The only thing I haven't put in is roller rockers, really. I mean, and they can be put in later if I want to, but for now I don't think that's a priority. There we go. Now, whoops. This is the big test, alright? You watching? That box probably isn't great, but anyway, that's much easier. I don't know, a lot of people forget to look after the tools, and I bought a new air compressor. My other one, the cooling fan at the back exploded. It was just a direct drive thing, it was a bit of rubbish. Had it for 10 years. Well, anyway, I looked at the new one, and the instructions said, oh, you know, the duty cycle where the compressor stays on in relation to, or how long the motor can stay on before it has to stop for a rest. And the duty cycle is like 70%, so you can have 7 minutes of the engine running, or for the motor running, but it has to rest for 3. Or it might be 80, I don't know. It's like that though. But then I looked at it, and they recommended on the new one to give it an oil change every year. Now, I've never changed the oil in the compressor, which is really, really bad. So I'm going to do what they tell now and make sure I get it done. Well, we're sort of repeating ourselves with what we did with the engine block. We're going to see these things now. These are a set of heads I've had for a long time in this condition, but of course hadn't used them. I bought them years before I had the XC. So they sort of sat, and now I'm ready to use them. So I've got this engine almost finished, and so I'm just going to CC this, and I'm just doing the same thing I did before. So just so I can work out a bit of compression ratio. Now these, it's going to be determining whether or not I have to buy oversized push rods and that sort of thing. So you know, that's all I'm doing it for, and also to know what the compression ratio is. So I'll just put this bit of perspex over, this bit of acrylic sheet, and again this is homemade and probably a bit dodgy for some of you semi-professional blokes, but end of the day, it doesn't matter. It does matter. I'm going to put little vents at the top. It says up there, but that just means it goes this side, not that, because those holes are what do you call it? The holes are tapered. Gosh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this today. Okay, same deal. 50 cc's of very fine oil. I'm just going to drop this in. The spark plug's nice and tightened up. So here we go. And if it leaks out, we know there's something wrong. I'm coming up with a smidgen over 70. So I'm going to try and draw as much of this out now. Alright, we're going to stick these heads on today. And as always, when we're doing stuff on the engine, work on the engine, just to make sure everything's clean. So I'm just using some, this is just Prepsol, wiping along here, make sure it's all good. Which I'm going to change rags, this is leaving lint behind. Knock these little keepers in. You can get new ones, these are just the original ones that I cleaned up. And their purpose is to locate the gasket and so forth. Now, let's talk about gaskets. Rightio. So, here's a head gasket. There's a couple of things with this. They're labelled front, here. And that's fairly obvious and it's no big deal. But there's a reason for it, and it's not just to do with oil galleries and that sort of thing, but a lot to do with coolant as well, because what these will do, you'll notice there's a hole here and a hole here for coolant. Now it's important that this one's blocked off and this one's left open like that. Now Windsors are a real shocker because they've got two here and two here as well. They have a wet manifold, which I'm assuming has to do with that because it sort of circulates through the intake, the coolant circulates through the intake. These ones, if you put it this way, which fits, what that means is that back one's blocked off, and so your coolant's going to come out of your radiator, come straight up through here into the cylinder head, then back out to the radiator again. It's not going to be forced down the block and then up into the cylinder head and forward again. So this one goes that way. And it's most important to realise that. Now everything else looks to be lined up quite well. These have all been through a hot tank. I'm just putting a tiny bit of oil on there, running it around the thread, and then just wiping the excess off, just so the threads have a bit of lubricant in there. And I'm just snugging it down for now before I start torquing it up. Well, I was going to start torquing it down. The manual says 55, 3 stages, 55, 75 and then 95 to 105. I only go 60, 80, 100. I don't like using extensions because the closer the socket is to the gauge or to the wrench is going to be more accurate. And I'm starting in the center and I'm going out like this in a circular motion. I've got my foot against the engine stand so I can't move. I've done that one yet. It's this one. You shouldn't talk to people while you're doing this either. Take the phone off the hook. Don't answer any calls. here. Now another thing is I'm wearing gloves, and the reason is today is ludicrously sticky and humid, and I don't want any of my sweat, which you can see the gloves are full of it, all over those machine surfaces. So, alright, here we go again. Alright, so I'm going to put a couple of lifters in. I'm just using a bit of assembly lube on it. Whoa, crap, too much. Push it down the hole. I know number one is rocking, so I'm just going to drop a bit of oil just on the edge, whoa, on the edge of it there. Put our push rods in. Now, rolled these. I've rolled these on the bench. Sorry. And I know they are absolutely true. So you just get a nice level surface and just roll them up and down to make sure they don't sort of like that. That means they're bent. And of course we'll just assemble some of these fulcrums, and I don't want too much oil in the valley here because I don't want it washing off any of the what do you call it? The cam lube. So when we fill the engine, when we're ready to start it, we'll fill it through the rock cover sort of cap, not just pouring 4.5 litres in here, because that's just going to, you know, have a horrible effect of washing off any lubricant that I've put there for the camshaft. Of course, when you assemble these, it's always a good idea to put a bit of assembly lube on the contact areas. So what I want to do, and I'm tipping, so the good thing about this, I've worked out the compression, and it's about 9 to 1. Now I would have liked a bit higher, I would have liked about 9.5, but 9 to 1's virtually stock. They had 8.9 to start with, and it's because the heads, oops, the heads had 71.5 cc's in the chamber volume, which means they've only had probably 5-10 thousandths max taken off them. I'd be saying sort of around 5 thousandths, and the blocks only had 20 out of the bore, so it really is so rebuildable in the future, this thing, and it's not maxed out. And that's what I don't like about a lot of engines that people build, they max them out. And I think I mentioned the 186s turned 192s in the 80s were big for that. It's such a shame most of the blocks got wasted. Just got a bit of thinner and wiped off these push rods, and stuck a bit of painter's tape there. I'm just going to make a little mark, just using the top of the thing as a reference. This one's a bit harder because, and I'm expecting, or at least I'm hoping, that I don't need push rods for this thing, because it should, it doesn't have much taken off it. Now all I've done is I've just got the push rod at the top of the lifter stroke. We're shooting for 40 thousandths or a millimetre of valve less. I'm just going to screw those down, or at least tighten those up, and I'll take make another scratch. And we should wind up with a nice little variation. Whoops. Well, I've got the two nice cars outside. We've got this one here which I've got to fix, and I've got the XC all covered up because I've got to paint this now. Just got a couple of bolts. I'll change them for non-plated ones just to hold that on while I paint it. The manifold's sitting there. Of course, I've got to put the covers on, and also mask up all of these exhaust ports and so forth, and give it a paint job. Now these are all settled. You can see a mark on each one of those, so I know I've done each of those, checked each of those valve washes, and that's about it. Now by just putting stuff down like this temporarily. It's just sitting there. It's not bolted or anything like that. I'll make sure the bolt lines are all, or the bolt holes are lined up. It just means then I can just paint it and it'll mask itself off nicely. Of course, I'll just mark around where the water pump goes and also around here as well. But otherwise, it'll serve to kill two birds with one stone. I'll put a block of that off too down there. So I'll just spend a little while and do that now and get ready to paint it. Right, so we've got our blue, which we had mixed some time ago at Milson's. And this was colour matched off a rocket cover on the 390 FE motor I had, or the spare cover. And you know what? I don't like it. It's okay. It's just a bit pale. Now, years ago, I used to buy rattle cans of the VHT stuff. There was Ford light blue and dark blue, and the dark blue was supposed to emulate corporate blue, which it didn't. It didn't look anything like it. And of course, the XW's engine's corporate blue. But the problem is, when I went to get that mixed, there were 3 different types of corporate blue, and I'm assuming that the XC one's just a paler version, really. I mean, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess with it. This is just air dry enamel. It's not even QD. This stuff is though. So I'll probably wreck the paint, but what do you do? And I want to just tone it down a little bit. Now, colour's funny. You know, you can add white to pale it. Black will pull it down a couple of shades. You can richen up colours with red and cream them out with sort of ochre tints. That sort of. So I'm going to put a bit in there. Straight away, it's probably freaking rejected. But anyway. And I just want to pull it down. I just want to pull it down just a little bit, just a whisker. Anyway, that has come down considerably. It's not as blue, it's sort of a little bit darker. If anything, it looks a bit more green, but anyway. Now those observant, you'll probably see that thermometer says 35 degrees Celsius. Now that's painting suicide. You don't paint that sort of temperature. And you certainly wouldn't paint acrylic in that sort of temperature because the stuff dries that far out of the gun in that case. You just end up with powder everywhere. And quick drying enamel is sort of the same, but this is air dry enamel. This takes a day to go off, so we don't care. Right, now, what we want to do now is going to knock a couple of little holes there. And we're going to get every expert saying, oh, you can't do this, but I've been doing this for 30 years. And just knock some holes in the bottom there. Just in the bottom of that lip. And what that does is it stops paint gathering here and drying in the lip, so you can always reuse your can. And I've got the oldest can of acrylic here. I've got 15 years old, and that's still fine. Oh, dear, no. Have I got it all? I don't know. Let me get a little joint like that. Just to make sure you cover it, you know what I mean? Because otherwise you seal this stuff when you're finished. I think that's enough for now. I'll reassess it later. See if I can try to give it another coat. Yeah, get this mask off. Ugh, yuck. I'll have another look at it later. I'll give it another coat maybe. But that doesn't look too bad. I like the colour. Well, I'm finished, and well, this is pretty average. They're the rock covers off the Junkyard 302, and they've got dents in them, so I might look for some others. Doesn't look too bad. There's a rag stuffed in there that's pretty professional. And I've actually used my blue painter's tape around the water pump where the gasket goes. That's all pretty good. So yeah, look, that's all right. It'll do the job for now. I've got packs and packs of paint left, so I will get some other covers for it. I even went to the trouble of cutting circular. Oh, that's a mistake. That's where the PCV valve goes. Oh, big mistake. I did the same thing there, where the rock cover, where the oil filler goes, because I didn't want to, when you put the cover on, the cap on, it sort of scratches up all the paint and it mixes with oily gunk. And then I did a stupid thing and did the PCV valve the same way, which was dumb, because there's a grommet goes there and it's not that big, so, it doesn't matter. I'll brush touch it or something, I don't know. But what this means now is I can put it back together. Rightio, so we've got the thing ready to do more work on. I've put the manifold on. Probably shouldn't have used these types of gaskets. Should have used a Felpro steel sort of pan one. But I went with these because I had them, and it's New Year's Day today. Happy New Year. And can't get them. Can't buy them today, and I just want to get the thing together. What else is there? When you put these on, they're inclined to sag in the centre, so I used a contact adhesive. So it's been the centre parts. So they were tacky. They stayed where they needed to be. Bit of goop in the corner, elastic in the corner. So that's sealed, torqued down, ready to go. And so of course we need to take off the front, which I've just got sort of sitting here, just to act as masking. Actually, before I do that, I better take the tape off. Alright, so that was probably a bit overzealous doing that, but at the end of the day, it just makes everything cleaner. So I can bang that seal in, and it's all good. So of course it's going to scratch on those locating dowels, which I couldn't care less about. It's just just an exercise in painting it. So of course these were non-plated bolts that I used, 5/16 course. They can go in a tub to be plated for the next car, probably the Plymouth or something like that. A lot of the fasteners on that Plymouth seem to be the same as Ford. 5/16 course with very, very similar heads on them. I'm just going to pop this off because I want to put a gasket in here and also fit that seal. And gosh, there we go. That tells me exactly where I need to put the gasket goo and so on. When you get this lovely finish, and it just looks so crummy under the paint, but I didn't see the point in having the paint going through the cooling system. Here's that blue masking painter's tape, pinstriping tape as well, which I can just pull off. You should really, when you do things like this, run a razor blade around the edge on the off chance that you lift the paint, the surrounding paint. You would certainly do that with acrylic. This jam just has incredible adhesion, so I'm not going to bother doing it. But it's important just to, bits and pieces like this where you see it. That sort of protrudes from the top of the water pump, I think. No, it protrudes from behind. Yeah, you see the back of it. Anyway, not that attractive, but it'll work. Right, so I've just sort of whipped around here with Permatex, all around here, particularly around these water jackets, just to make sure we don't get a leak, because the last thing we need is water getting into the oil through here. I'll just stick that down. I'm just going to go over it again, because we are putting a pre-loved timing case on. And again, I'm just going round here. Now, I just want to loosely put these in. We've got our timing mark there. Which is being problematic. There we go. Got that. And what we'll do then is I'm going to put the balancer on. I don't want to tighten this up until the balancer's there and this is all central. I don't think it's going to be able to move anywhere because it's on locating dowels, but it's not a bad practice to get into. This is a great thing. It's got a Torrington bearing on it. Oops. And so the lettuce winds it in nice and true. And if there is any, this is more sort of critical on Windsors than Cleveland's, because they do have, I don't think the Windsors have those locating dowels there. So I'm just going to wind this in, and then it'll get to the point where I can just use the crank bolt to finish it off. Started, that'll hold everything. That's the wrong size bolt, I think. Now some of these aren't blind, they go into the water jackets. Right, so some of these holes go into water jackets, particularly around sort of these areas and so forth. I'm using GM sealer. This stuff's expensive at about $40 a can, but it's it can last you 20 odd years. So I'm just going to dunk. Some of these won't go into it, doesn't matter much. It just goes on the end of the thread like that and just basically screws in. And so it won't clag the thread up, but it will seal it. And so I'm just going to screw these in, just reasonably loosely for now. But I can't remember what length some of them are, which is a real pain, because there's one there, so I'll put that in and wipe it off. I use this stuff on Welsh plugs and have never ever had a leak from it. They're great. It's absolutely great stuff. So it's got to go around and skewer these, and I'll nip them up then. I don't think these ones go into jackets. These are just here, but oh well, I'll screw it in anyway. It's all good. Alright, I reckon we're good now. I'm just going to use the speed brace and go diagonally. Sort of let it sit down against its sealer, and that way it'll work properly. There's also the alternator brackets that have to go there as well, which I've got them painted, but before I do that I want to knock in a new heater take up sort of spigot for it. Well, I've got that. So I'm just going to go and tighten these up. That I'm not happy with. It's too long. I might change that one out later. It's a little bit too long. Okay, so I've got to put this in here. It's just a brass union for the heater, and these are pressed in. I'm just going to get it started, and I'll use a drift with a hammer and knock that down. Here we go. Okay, it's going to chip the end of that, so I'll just use a drift with a hammer. Right, so I'm getting tongue-tied. I've just put a few items on it. I've got to get a slightly shorter bolt. That's about 5mm protruding at the back. Don't like it, it looks untidy. Got to get a blanking thing here too. I actually stupidly sold two of them on the FE, the 390 I had. Water pump's on, sort of zapped up, that's all good. I'm going to fill it with oil. It's just a bung I made. It's pretty backyard. It's got tape around just to keep muck out of there. I'm going to fill the engine from in here. I'm going to put the sump on now, then fill it from there. Alternator bits and pieces on there, only loose. Of course, the dipstick as well. Pointer, I've got the balancer pulley on, that sort of thing. I'm not going to put the fan on yet until I've got it mounted on the stand. I do want to put the clutch fan on because I want to check that it's operating properly. So I need to flick the thing over, which always makes me a little bit nervous. Oh, here we go. Because it's very top heavy. Well, it's top heavy now. It's bottom heavy. Just swing it round and put the pan on. Once the pan's on, I can fill it with oil. It's important when you put the sump gasket on to put a bit of Celastic just in the corners there where the rubber meets the cork. And they sort of press in and protect the corner. There's a little tongue on the cork in there that sort of plugs in underneath that rebate there. So it's important we get that right, because the last thing we need is oil leaks, or is an oil leak. So we'll just put them on. I'll just put a tiny bit of a smear just in that corner again, just so that it's reliable. Look, I haven't had, doing this method, I've not had problems with oil leaks, but of course you don't want to speak too soon in case you pop one. And just give it another little bit just in that corner there. I'm putting it outward like that so it doesn't gather on the inside. I don't want chunks of elastic drying off inside the engine. And it's one of those things where less is more, because if you put too much in, it will ooze out everywhere, and you want to avoid that. And people are very, very much overzealous with this stuff. Because we've got 1/4 inch and 5/16 in each corner. I've done a rubbish job painting the sum, so I sort of did it all from underneath, and didn't do the best job. But we do have to look at it and say, well, you know what, it's all good. And I'm just sort of pulling it down evenly. Where are we, this one? Just gently. I think I've already pulled those on there. I'm going to pull these on now. And I'm only doing it loosely for now. I'm just sort of snugging them. Okay, so I'm doing the corner ones. So I'm just sort of going round and just nipping them up nicely. And I can't fill it with oil yet. I've lost the sun plug. I don't know where I put it. It's time to pop the Welshies in. I'm just going to go around here with a bit of, just a bit of 120. No, it's not, it's 180, I'm lying. Just to clean up in there. I've got my tea here, look at that. Get rid of some of the paint that I left there. Now Burson's, and I always go to Burson in Ringwood to get all my bits and pieces. I only had 4 of these Welshies in stock, so today's New Year's Day, as I mentioned, and tomorrow is a day in lieu, I think. So I can get them on Tuesday. Now, that's nice and gorgeous. So now we use our trusted GM seal, and that's the socket I always use. Now when I put these in, I use a socket. It fits very well, but it's not too snug, because these are going to squeeze up when you drop them in there. And of course you don't want to hang on to a socket. So you can see it's all old GM sealer on there, because I always use this one. The other thing to check first, or before you do that, just get a vernier, and just to check the depth of the hole. I'm just going to around about there, so I know that I can set these flush with the block. If that hole was shallow and they were like that, that'd be no good. You sort of want them flush at the back. But I always put these in flush with the top, but always check the depth of the hole first. Now the other thing is, the Plymouth has a disc type. These are a cup type. These are much better. Lots of surface area there to seal on. Where the cup type or the disc type ones have a ledge at the back. So they just drop in loosely and you sort of smack them in the centre and they pull out, but they don't have much to seal on. And the ones in the Plymouth have been weeping and gone underneath the engine enamel and sort of peeled off a chunk of paint that big with all this sort of corrosion around there, which looks dreadful. So let's put this one in now. And so I'm just sort of feeling around it to make sure I get it level. I'm on a bad angle actually. That's it there, I think. That's good. I'll just clean that out and it's all hunky-dory. So I can only do 3 today, or 4 today I should say. Burson's only had 4 of these in stock. And I need 6 of course, and today being Sunday, tomorrow's a public holiday in lieu of New Year's Day. and so I need to go and wait till Tuesday, and then I can fit them and take this thing off the stand. Now, I use Bursons for everything of this sort of vein, you know, brass plugs, belts, and all that sort of stuff. Even a lot of engine parts I buy through Bursons as well. And it's managed by a guy called Matt, who years ago I used to teach Bursons in Ringwood. And if you ever see him, just say, "How's Henry going?" You'll know what you mean. And Henry was a character in some curriculum we had years ago, and it was a cartoon. It looked like Ren and Stimpy almost, but it was on relationships with customers. It was particularly schmaltzy. This is the wrong one, but it'll do for now. Just block it off. Oops. That'll do. Got this rather special thermostat, a high flow Cleveland one, which we're going to put in, and therefore trying to avoid them. They're designed to try and stop them overheating. I've never actually had a Cleveland overheat, but apparently they do. We'll follow that with a nice new thermostat housing. Crank that on. I'll set the gas, but I've got a couple of spares, and that just sort of sits over like that. I always like to use Permatex as a sealer. The other thing that's not a bad idea is anti-seize on some of the bolts. And you get it in little containers like that. And you just put it on the threads just to stop them galling. Very important around exhaust manifold studs, things like that. I've got to put this washer on. And of course it will serve to, just on the off chance anything looks like it's going to get a bit stuck. I think we have in the top here are TBS switches, they will vacuum switches. And there's a 2-port one and a 3-port one. I think the 2-port one is for the EGR valve, and the 3-port one is for the vac advance. So I've just snug this up. I might have these in the wrong order. I'll have a look at the XD. Although the XD's only got one. I think the XD's had 2 and the XD's had 1. I just remembered that the XD's got, I think, the 3-port one, which grabs manifold pressure as well as sort of a manifold vacuum, as well as the carburetor vacuum takeoff for the distributor coming out of it. I can't remember exactly what the plumbing is, but they sit something like that. And they also have these hoods that go over them, these sort of rubber hoods, and they sort of sit over like that, and then your vacuum takes off from there. And I've got the 2 here, but I haven't got, there's this one here too, and that sort of goes over like that, something like that. I'm missing one of those little, a couple of those little plastic joiner bits there, but I'll take those off for now and put them on later. Actually no, I'll leave them there because they'll protect it. But that's the wrong tree. There should be a plastic sort of, a white plastic tree there. And of course the other thing is the alternator bracket, and these go on there like that. So I'll just whip that out for now. Now I'm just going to take them out and have a look. So I've just done these sort of finger tight because I'll be taking these off again. Just when I start pumping oil through everything. and I'll be using this tool here so we can take our little temporary bung out, and this just goes into the oil drive. Jesus. Into the oil drive, which is there. You can turn the oil pump. That just keeps it all centered, but also keeps muck out of there, so that's cool. As far as caps are concerned, the XCs use these ones here. I've given that a bit of a paint job, and that just sits sort of like that. For now, I'm just going to use this one. This one's got a gasket in it. This one doesn't. I've got to find a gasket for it, so I can just sit there like that. And that's pretty much it for this video. So, in the next one, we will finish it. We'll put the alternator on it, get a sun plug because I've lost it. Put a sun plug in it, and what else do we do? Fill it with oil, prime it, and what else? Put it on the engine stand, I think. So it's all looking pretty good. We'll put the plugs in there, just there to stop muck getting in. Of course, we've got our oil sender on. We've got a vacuum part taken off. That's for the power brakes, the vacuum port, sorry. And this one here as well. They'll work for the engine stand, of course. We'll just put our Holly on there for now to run it. But, end of the day, I'm pretty happy. So, enjoy Classic, take care of yourselves, Happy New Year, and I'll see you later. Ta-da!